All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1,000,000 Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with my friend John Mitchell. John, welcome. Welcome to the show. So awesome to have you, man.
Kevin, thank you for having me. It's my honor.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I have to give a shout out to Joe Polish, because you and I met. I don't remember how many years ago. It's been a number of years ago now through Genius Network. It's probably been a good, man. I want to say at least what 7, 8 years, if not
Yeah,
longer than that. Uh,
something like that.
yeah, man, time flies, John. Now I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm dating myself. so,
Right.
so, but I'm just incredibly grateful to Joe and all that he's done because through that group, Genius Network, I've met some pretty amazing people like yourself. And so, what I'd like to do is just kind of start off by turning it over to you and give you the opportunity to set a little bit of context and just cover a little bit of your background. What you do, who you
Right.
serve, what inspires you most about the work that you do. And we'll just start there, John.
Right. Well, here's basically my story. I started out as a CPA and became an entrepreneur at 30. But Kevin, when I turned 50, I just wasn't as successful as I thought I should be. And
Okay. All right.
I had two goals in my life: to make enough money so I didn't have to work, and to find the woman of my dreams. And so at 50, unfortunately, I was falling short on both of them. And so on the money, I always did okay. I was making $200,000, $300,000 net a year. But at 50, as materialistic as this sounds, I realized that I had to start netting over $1 million a year if I wanted to have the exceptional life.
Okay.
And on the girl, at 50, I'd never been married, but Kevin, now I can tell you, I did a lot of interviewing. Of course, I called it interviewing. My friends called it begging, but but nevertheless, at 50, I'm just puzzled as to how to change things around. And I don't know, maybe 3 months after I turned 50, a pearl of wisdom came to me, which was find the top book in the world on success and apply that book literally word for word to my life.
Okay.
So I'm like, that's a pretty good idea, right? And so I remember immediately jumping out of bed and doing the research, because I don't know if there's one book above all others, but to my surprise, I realized that there's one book that's been read by over 100 million people, and the next best book on success has been read by less than 10 million people.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
and that book is Think and Grow Rich.
Mm.
I mean, the top book in the world on success by a factor of 10,
That's
exactly
huge.
what I was
huge.
looking for. And so, Kevin, I was like a heat-seeking missile the next day. I'd go to the bookstore and buy the book and read the book. And then I see the problem. The book says there's a secret for success, but the author only gives us half of the secret. It's on the reader to figure out the other half. And so I'm like, oh, great. I'm disappointed, and I mope around for a couple of weeks. And Kevin, then one day I just get up and I go, John, man up, figure out the damn secret and practical way to apply it. And so over the next couple months, again, this is probably 3 months after I turned 50,
Okay.
I immerse myself in the book, and I'm reading it night and day, and I'm probably reading it 20 times. But what emerges is I figure out the full secret and a 12-minute a day technique to apply it. And quickly, my income starts doubling and doubling and doubling in a new company I was starting in the reverse mortgage industry, to the point where 4 years later, I was netting 25 times the 200 to 300,000 a year I was making the prior 20 years. And I felt so blessed, as I would. And what was so cool, Kevin, is I could see why it was all happening. I was just playing the game of life at a higher level, and boy, I could feel it, and I could just do things I never could do before. And I became fascinated by the fact that you could take two key scientific principles and apply them to your life, and so materially impact your success. And so that's my story. But if I could, Kevin, I'd like to share why this 12-minute a day methodology that I created works. Is
Sure,
that
go
is
right
that
ahead.
okay?
Yeah.
So the most significant thing I ever learned in my life is one thing, that 95% of my daily actions are unconscious.
Okay.
Now let me say that again. 95% of one's daily actions are unconscious. And here's the significance of that. Your daily actions determines your success in each area of your life.
Mhm.
So if 95% of your daily actions are unconscious, you don't actually control the very thing that determines your success in life. But here's the great news. I discovered that you could gain control of those daily actions by rewiring your autopilot. And that takes 12 minutes a day. And then the right actions happen automatically without thinking. And as you'll see, three things then occur. First, you're focused only on what moves the needle. All distractions fall by the wayside. And then, Kevin, the second thing you see is you've literally tripled your discipline. And third, you have a level of control over your life beyond what you've ever experienced before. And I really felt like I had acquired a superpower because again, the right actions were started happening automatically without thinking because I had leveraged myself through science. And as to credibility, and this is like, I don't know, 9 years ago, when I told my story to the former chancellor and president at the University of Texas, he said, "Hey, you got to teach this at the University of Texas, and why don't we teach it together?" And that led me to teaching my methodology to the athletic director, which then led to me being the mental coach for the 17 head coaches at the University of Texas. And
Wow.
then that's now evolving to teaching my methodology to the 800 athletes as a required course here at the University of Texas.
Wow.
And so I also teach this to high achiever entrepreneurs,
Okay.
and with the entrepreneurs I teach it to, I give them a money back guarantee. If I can't double their income within a year, I give them their money back. And the only catch to it is that they got to be netting a minimum of 200,000 a year to join my 8-week program. So
Okay.
that's a long-winded version of what I do.
Very good. Very good. I mean, that is the results that you had after doing that. I mean, that's really amazing. That is really amazing. And what a testament to the power of this whole thing that you have kind of figured out. And I did not realize that Think and Grow Rich was the most read book by a factor of 10 over any other book ever written. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal.
Well, and Kevin, this is I know a lot of people don't. I see that only about 1 in 7 people has ever heard of Think and Grow Rich. And I'm like, what does that tell us about society? If there's one book that's the top book on success by a factor of 10,
Yeah.
and only 1 in 7 people has ever heard of it, it tells me we live there's so much clutter in the world. We don't see the meaningful versus the things that aren't meaningful.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And as I have explained over the years, this I see that it's really only for high achievers. And what I think we'll see today, that a lot of people are going to hear this interview and they're going to find it's interesting, but the high achievers are going to find it life changing, I think. And
Well,
and
yeah. Yeah.
you buy that?
100%. And as soon as you said that, I would, yes. And here's why I believe, because that's who I work with, is these well-established, high achieving entrepreneurs. And those entrepreneurs, they are continually on the lookout for the slight edge, just the little thing, the one, thing here, the thing there that is going to make, and they've already had, well, John, you and I were talking about this before we hit the record button, that, I mean, it's this discovery process that we're
Right.
on. And we end up in the course of doing what we do, we make these discoveries that, like, oh, that was really good, right? I'm going to do more of that. And that's what high achievers, they've had lots of those experiences in their career. And so they know that it's these little things that they discover along the way that make the biggest differences, that make the biggest impact. And so they're continually on the lookout. They are on a lifelong discovery process, looking for those slight edges, those little things,
Well, it's funny you use the word edge, because that's what I call my course, the edge, because I found in life that if you want to have the exceptional life, you got to have something that gives you an edge, that gives you an advantage.
Yeah.
Because if you do life like everybody else, baby, you're getting the average life. Count on it.
That's right.
And I see that most high achievers don't understand two key things. The first one is what I've already mentioned, that 95% of your daily actions are unconscious. And just, contemplate, like I said, the significance of that, and connecting the dots, that your success, your daily actions determine your success. And if you don't control them by controlling your autopilot, then you don't really have control of your success.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that we're all innately wired for survival, innately, and that causes us, the vast majority of our thoughts, to be fear-based, and we're reactive rather than proactive. And so the combination of those two things is that when you open your eyes every morning, hey, you're on autopilot most of the day, innately wired to be fear-based and reactive, which is exactly the opposite of how you need to be if you want to be productive, creative, and happy. Yeah. And the way you fix that, in my view, the only way you fix it is with your morning routine, where you're taking your morning routine and impacting your mindset. So you override that programming to being reactive and fear-based, and rather put in programming that causes you to be productive, creative, and happy. And that's what this 12-minute a day methodology does.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Well, so now that we've got some context set here, I'm going to switch gears, and I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So, John, have you ever met or been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And John, I'm just like really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Right. Well, yes, and that's such a great question. I would say I would answer it two ways.
Okay.
At one level, Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich, obviously, this completely transformed my life. But something you said that really resonated with me is I became inspired by my future self. And I'll tell you a little backstory when I turned 50 that you'll find interesting. So, I'm turning 50. I'm not as successful as I think I should be. And I'm feeling that scarcity of time. But the other thing that was going on was my mom was dying of pancreatic cancer. And I remember every day after work going to see her, and I'd go and love on her in the hospital. And this was going on for like 6 to 8 weeks. And after I would hold her hand and love on her, I'd go in the hospital parking lot every night, Kevin, and cry my eyes out for 30 to 45 minutes every night. And, obviously I'm feeling the loss of my mom, or the impending loss of my mom, but I knew there was something going on way deeper than that. And I realized that, you know, my mom and dad gave me everything. They sent me to Jesuit high school in Dallas when they probably couldn't afford it. They sent me to the University of Texas. I didn't have to pay for a thing. And I just looked at my life and I'm like, all I've got to show for all the advantages I had was the average life. And Kevin, I hated the average life, absolutely hated the average life, because I just knew I was capable of so much more, but you damn sure couldn't see it in the results I was producing. And candidly, that that feeling was like rocket fuel in causing me to go deeper into Think and Grow Rich than anybody else on the planet. That's why I was able to figure out the secret. Uh, that's what I'd really believe and feel. Does that make sense?
Totally, totally. And
And
so, go ahead. I didn't.
and you know, I'll share with you how I discovered the secret and what the
Okay.
secret is,
Okay.
which is, I know, what everybody's sort of interested in. And you know, I remember it like it was yesterday. And it was this one special night. It was snowing in Dallas, which doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I go to the hospital. I see my mom. I go cry my eyes out, and you know, that experience of crying my eyes out every night for 6 weeks was so emotionally uh, devastating to me and so impactful. Anyway, this night it just feels different because it's snowing, and I'm driving home and I'm seeing the big snowflakes sitting in my windshield. And so I get home and I sit down, I start reading more of Think and Grow Rich, again, probably the 20th time I'd read it. And I read something interesting. It basically says that your success in life comes down to your daily actions. The cumulative effect of your daily actions determine your success in each area of your life. Like, never thought about it like that, but sure, very logical.
Mhm.
And then I read that 95% of my daily actions are unconscious. I'm like, that's interesting. And so, Kevin, by now I'm ready to go to bed. I wash my face and brush my teeth and get in bed. I'm laying there. I'm staring up the ceiling. And I keep on thinking about that. 95% of my daily actions are unconscious. And as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, wait a minute. You know, if that's true, which it is, but if that's true, then I don't actually control the very thing that determines my success. And I'm like, wow, that's that. So I see, oh, if they're unconscious, then I've got to gain control of those unconscious daily actions. And you do it by rewiring your autopilot. And at that moment, it all sort of came together. And I realized what the full secret of Think and Grow Rich is what you envision in detail with emotion on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. Let me say that again. What you envision in detail with emotion on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. And what that really means, Kevin, is you take your life and you create immense intention and clarity. Here's exactly the person you want to be, exactly what you want to accomplish, and precisely how you're going to achieve your clearly defined goals. And so you create that clarity. I do it through using a questionnaire. And then you take that clarity and put it on a template that I've created that's 18 years in development now. And you start feeding that clarity to yourself every day. And after 21 days, the subconscious mind accepts that clarity and that programming. And then it's like a light goes off in your head. The right actions start happening automatically without thinking. You know, what you're feeding yourself starts showing up automatically without thinking. And three things then happen. the first thing is you feel this immense sense of control over your life. Because of course you would. You're feeding the succinct articulation of your life to yourself every day. Of course you're going to feel this immense sense of control. Second thing you experience is immense confidence, because that's a direct result of the control. And then the third thing you feel again is you start seeing after 21 days, because before 21 days, subconscious mind will reject the programming. But I'm always amazed at how around the 21st to 30th day, all of my clients see at that sort of point, then the right actions start happening automatically.
Wow. Wow.
And
John?
if you like, you want me to give you an example of this?
Yeah, you
Maybe,
give an
maybe,
example, and then I'm just thinking of an example that has happened in my own life that is just in 100% alignment with what you just said. And I'm sitting here going, wow, that is exactly what happened. So yeah,
right.
go, yeah.
Well, here's and you know what, like I said when I told my story, you know, I feel like it's a superpower, and here's why I say that. So, and this happened, I don't know, a year or two ago. It's around Christmas. One of my clients up in Portland, who, and half my clients are making $1 million a year when they come to me, and half of them are under $1 million. This guy happened to be making a couple million a year, so he comes to me, and I teach him this methodology. And he came to San Antonio with his girlfriend, which is about an hour from Austin. So I tell him, yeah, I'll get Ginger and we'll meet you and have dinner in San Antonio. And so again, it's Christmas and Ginger's out and about, I'm out and about, and I tell the Ginger to meet me at Starbucks at 2 o'clock. I get there a little early, and Kevin, I decide, you know, I'm going to have a brownie. It's Christmas, what the heck? And so one of the things I feed to myself every day in my 12-minute a day methodology is that I'm aware of everything I put in my mouth. Well, I started eating that brownie. I'm aware of it. I'm aware it doesn't taste very good, but I continue to eat that brownie. And so Ginge gets there. We jump in my car and I'm driving. I'm like, babe, you know, I just don't feel very good. I've lost my appetite. Just don't feel very good. Well, that night we get back home and I change literally one word in the template. I call it the life GPS template. And so I changed one word from I'm aware of everything I put in my mouth to I evaluate everything I put in my mouth. Well, the next night we go out and have Mexican food with her son, and I order tacos. Well, tacos come, and except this time I'm evaluating everything I put in my mouth, and I just slide those tacos away and don't have another bite, and it happens unconsciously. And I remember that night laying in bed, and I'm like, boy, if that's not a superpower, when you can get yourself to do the right things automatically without thinking, that's a superpower.
Wow. Yeah. That is, man. So now I have to share something with you because you just really have me thinking. You know, I have been facilitating relationships for years. And in fact, I know before we hit the record button, I was telling you that the first big relationship that I facilitated for these two guys was 12 years ago. And that's the
Right,
one that got me thinking, wouldn't it be cool if I had a business where I got to do that all the time?
right,
And it, you know, took some time for that idea to percolate. And I was running another business. I was running a publishing company at the time and all that. And and you know, but now I have that business. That is what I do. I facilitate relationships that impact millions of people, and I do that on an almost daily basis.
right,
Sometimes a couple times a day. And but it, you know, it's interesting. Even this podcast, you know, we launched this podcast 2 years ago. We named it the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And even at that time, 2 years ago, when I would be out and about at events, interacting with entrepreneurs, and people would ask me, "What do you do, Kev?" My quick answer was, I facilitate $1 million relationships, and
Right.
and that would get some curiosity going and stuff. But yet at the same time, I would back that comment up by saying, but in reality, it has absolutely nothing to do with any dollar figure, but it's all about the relationships.
Right. Right.
And at some point along the line, uh, earlier last year, I was talking with a friend of mine, and I just had this epiphany when I was talking with her. I was like, my gosh, Blake, I was like, I'm not the guy who facilitates $1 million relationships. And she's like, well, who are you then, Kevin? I said, I'm the guy who facilitates relationships that impact millions of people. And she's like,
Yeah.
huh. And I will tell you, in that moment, John, that was such a visceral and just feeling that just came over me, that I realized in that moment, that's who you are, Kevin. And ever since then, I just now I tell myself all the time. I'm constantly saying to myself, and it's not a conscious thing. It just I just do. I facilitate $1 million relationships all the time, and
Kevin,
it's just become true.
Kevin, that is fascinating because, what I see with my methodology, I'm creating the succinct articulation of one's life. And when you feed that to yourself, it causes you to evolve, just like you evolved from having a short way of explaining what you do to then a more powerful, deeper understanding of what you do. And I see that all the time. Like in my visualization and my clients' visual, they're changing it. Uh, I change mine probably once a week because I'm just seeing something in my life deeper and deeper. And what I found, especially once I had enough money not to have to work, the money was the least of the benefits because I saw the tremendous impact it had on my marriage. I found my wife using it. I also discovered that I could control myself at such a higher level that I could be the way I wanted to be with my wife to make her happy and to have a great relationship. And it obviously impacts my health as well.
Yeah.
And I think one thing your audience would find interesting is here's how the human mind works. And this is so simple it hurts. The conscious mind sets your intention and is influenced by logic. Subconscious mind controls your daily actions and is only influenced by repetition. And so the example is, let's say you want to lose weight. Well, conscious mind sets the intention to lose weight based on the logic of the health benefits. But the reason people aren't losing weight is not from lack of intention, it's from lack of influencing their daily actions of eating and exercising. And they can only be influenced by repetition. That's why that feeding this to yourself 12 minutes a day every day, that's the repetition that causes you to influence your daily actions in the right way. And that, if you understand that, then everything else gets simple.
Wow, wow. Having you describe this, is really powerful, because I'm like, wow, this is exactly what's been going on. And that, now, after having that transformational experience where I'm like, oh, you're not this guy, this is who you are.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is just a complete alignment. And now, ever since, like, and I can see that, like, I just started telling myself that. And it
Yeah.
wasn't like, oh, I need to tell myself this because, and I didn't fully, you and I hadn't talked about this in detail, but I just do it multiple times throughout the day. And I've even like
Yeah.
set I've got these set points. Like when I get in and out of my vehicle, When I get in, I say
Yeah.
that to myself. When I get out, I say that to myself. When I'm brushing my teeth in the morning, I say that to myself. When I brush my teeth at night, I say that to myself. So I've got these points throughout the day where I've just been like, oh, when you do this, you say that, say it. And now all this stuff is just happening. It's like I'm just getting put in. In fact, it's absolutely amazing when I think about it. I'm just like, because stuff just happens. I get an email where somebody's like, Kev, you need to talk with so and so. I'm going to I want to introduce you guys so you guys can have a conversation. And it happens all the time,
Well, you're influencing your subconscious mind, and you'll find this interesting. I was telling you that half my clients are netting $1 million when they come to me, and half are under $1 million. And one of the things I've seen lately that's really interesting is a significant percentage of the ones that are netting over $1 million already do some version of feeding this succinct articulation of their life to themselves. It's oftentimes a rudimentary way, and I show them how to take it 3 levels up, and it's powerful. But you know what? How many of the ones that are earning 6 figures a year are doing that? Zero. Not a friggin' one of them is feeding the succinct articulation of their life to themselves. And boy, that tells you something, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Wow. Well, John, I really want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to have this conversation today and just share from your heart and share of your experience. For anybody listening to this, is like, man, Kim, I really like what John is sharing. And like, how can they get more information on this? Or how can they find out more about what you guys are doing?
Well, I've got something that I did just for you, Kevin, because
All right.
you and I've been such friends for a long time. I created a 9-minute video that
Okay.
earlier this year that that explains all this clearly and succinctly, and shows you the template and all that. And if people will contact me at john@thinkitbeit.com,
Okay.
john@thinkitbeit.com. And like I said, this works on everyone because it's pure science. And that's why when I work with entrepreneurs, I tell them, I'm going to make you a money back guarantee. If I can't double your income within a year, I'm going to give you your money back. And again, the only thing I require though is they got to be making a minimum of 200,000 a year, because I'm leveraging them. I'm not creating them. They got to create their business and have a legitimate, productive business, and that's not my specialty. But once they're to that 200,000
Yep. Yep.
net or above, then I can work my magic. And so that's how I do it.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. And it's yeah, that totally well, because I was thinking if somebody doesn't have anything going, doubling zero is not going to be very effective.
That's right. That's
so,
right.
so
But and I tell you, it's just so interesting to me. It's just easy if a guy's making 2 or 3 or 400,000 a year. I don't want this to sound arrogant, but it's just easy to double it,
yeah.
with this methodology. Now they start making 3 or 4 million a year. Yeah, we can still double it, but it's a little harder. But that's okay.
Well, and I'll tell you, John, there's nothing arrogant about that at all. I mean, I've discovered the very same thing in my own life that,
Right.
I love entrepreneurs. Like anybody who would become an entrepreneur, I have just respect for them because
Yeah, me too.
just the fact that they became an entrepreneur,
Yeah,
and
yeah, right.
but
And
it
had the
doesn't
courage to
matter.
do it.
That's right. That's right. Man, and it doesn't matter how much I love entrepreneurs, though, and in general, because I can't, as much as I love entrepreneurs, it is impossible for me to help all of them. I can't. I have discovered that my skill set is extremely useful and extremely valuable to a certain type of entrepreneur. And I used to just love everybody and try to help them all. And it was so dang frustrating because I wanted the best for them. I wanted to help them. And it took time to figure out that, like, Kev, you just need to focus on helping this kind of entrepreneur. And now it's now things are, like you said, it's easy. It's easy. It's enjoyable. It's rewarding. It's profitable. All of that stuff, you know.
Right. Well,
So
I realized that when I was working, when I was in my 30s and 40s, I worked harder than all my friends. And the difference was when I turned 50, I figured out how to work smart by leveraging myself through science. And what a difference that made. And so as I've evolved in teaching this, I'm selective about who I work with,
yeah,
obviously. And they got to show me that they are really driven and they're serious about this. Because I'm a busy boy, but I love teaching entrepreneurs this. As long as they prove to me they're driven and they want to go to that next level.
yeah, yeah. Well, John, I want to thank you again for taking the time to have this conversation. This has been just really fascinating. I had no idea that this was going to end up hitting home on such a personal level for me. And so I want to,
Yeah,
personally thank
yeah.
you for that. For any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
The only thing I would say, I don't know if I told you, I just had a new grandbaby not too long ago. And
Wow,
and
awesome.
and it's funny, Kevin, I didn't have kids of my own. But the day after the grandbaby comes, we're over at Hannah's house and Ginger and Hannah hand me the baby. So here I am, I'm holding this little baby that's like 1 day old, and I have tears coming down my eyes, out of my eyes, and because I realize this life is so precious, and this little boy is going to live to be 100 years, and here I'm holding him, and I'm like, this is a metaphor for all of our lives. Boy, each of our lives is so precious. You know, let's play it to our full potential instead of, and I see that life is just a state of mind. And when you take control of your mindset with your morning routine, it's a whole new ball game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is really powerful. That is really powerful. And well, John, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. I am really excited to share this interview and get this out there, and just really appreciate you, my friend.
Well, right back at you, Kevin.